Hey Ben, my name is Carmi, huge fan. I'm originally from LA too. Moved in 2012.
Why would you move to this weather, dude?
Well, my dad's a rabbi, so he moved.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So do you think the GOP rigs election with gerrymandering and Voter-ID laws? And specifically with Roy Moore, the Roy Moore election, 97% of black people voted for Doug Jones. People say that they saved the election.
Well, I mean, so as far as voter ID, I do not think that voter ID is discriminatory. If I have to show an ID to buy an alcohol, it seems to me that I should have to show ID in order to vote. This does not seem like a huge burden on me. I mean, voting seems to me a significantly more important decision than what type of beer I get or whether I have to buy a crappy Zima. As far as gerrymandering, the truth is that gerrymandering, there are only two ways to do districting, right? Way one is that you have some sort of quasi-impartial board that actually draws the districts. The problem is these boards are rarely impartial, and historically those boards have been biased to one side or another, and so gerrymandering has been the way that we've done politics in the United States for 300 years at this point, or at least 250 years. So the idea that that is something out of bounds or crazy is sort of ridiculous, especially because the argument seems to be that once Republicans enter power, then they can gerrymander the districts so Democrats never get elected again. Okay, literally 2 years ago, the Democrats had the presidency, and in 2009, right, I mean, I'm old enough to remember this, in 2009 the Democrats ran everything, and Republicans were never going to win again. And then Republicans won the House and they won the Senate. Now it probably looks like Republicans may lose the House, despite the gerrymandering. And then, you know what'll happen? The Democrats will gerrymander it right back, right? This is what happens in state legislatures all around the country. So the idea that it's some sort of grave thing that we have to be deeply concerned about, I don't see the evidence that it's super grave. I'm open to the idea there's a better solution than gerrymandering. I'm just not sure that the solutions that have been proposed, these sort of bipartisan boards, that those are necessarily the proper solutions.
Thank you very much. And may I also take a selfie with you, possibly?
Oh, well, I don't think the other guy got to, so that's kind of unfair. But we'll see if afterward we can do some selfies.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for coming. A common criticism liberals, particularly progressives, often levy at conservatives is the absence of compassion, so to speak, in the formation of our policies. Especially under Trump. So what is your position on if compassion over logic, perhaps, or
empathy is
whatever
stupid.
balance?
So, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, empathy is dumb. The reason I say this is not because I don't have empathy for people. It's because you should not make policy based on who you care most about. If I did, I would take all of your money and give it to my kids. I like them better than I like you. Right? The fact is that, I mean, there's an entire book on empathy that's specifically about why empathy in policy is a problem. Sympathy is fine. Right? Having sympathy for people is good. Having empathy for people is not great. The distinction being, if you have sympathy, you feel bad for someone. If you have empathy, you put yourself in the shoes of that person. But by doing so, you are now not in the shoes of everybody else. The best policy that can be made is the policy that is about the data and the number of people who are affected, because you can always find the person who's the most victimized and then make policy around that person, as opposed to trying to create policy that affects the most people in the most beneficial ways. So, I mean, it's great to be empathetic. I don't see empathy as much as of a moral value as some other people do. I don't think feelings are in and of themselves moral values. I think behavior is moral much more than feelings. Maybe this is my Judaic background, but Judaism is much more an acts-based religion than a grace-based religion, meaning that in my religious viewpoint, I think that God cares much more about what you do than how you feel about it. I think politically speaking, some of the worst things that have ever happened were based on good intentions. And so, trying to formulate policy that is the best without violating people's rights is a better way of doing policy than saying, I empathize with this group of people or this particular person, and therefore I'm going to shift policy to meet them there.